Hey, I'm John Roberts, co-founder of Successly, here with Sharisha from Strike Deck. We just finished up the Customer Success Network Meetup here in the South Bay, and Sharisha's going to tell you about how you can come to the next one.
We do 5 events, customer success events, 4 in California. We're just going to start one in Seattle. You can subscribe to the events on Customer Success Network on the Meetup.
I run pretty new at Cisco. I've been there for the beginning of the year. I started in January. Before that, I was at a company called Evol. I ran customer success, their services, and all the cloud ops. And before that, I was at Cisco before. But I'm kind of the weird bird. Like, I literally am, thank God customer success came, because I started as a process engineer, so I get that process mindset. And then you become a program manager, which is very much process mindset. And then I went into services, doing professional services, and then moved into cloud operations, doing my service provider stint, which made me not want to work with service providers again, because they never move, to your point. And then I led a large engineering team at Cisco. And then I came back to services and cloud operations, so I'm like this weird bird. Nobody can figure out what I am, but what's that?
Stay up there so we can keep the camera.
Oh, the camera's on me, okay.
There you go.
I'll get this one right, and I won't stumble.
Go.
Okay.
Looking good.
No, just stand here the whole time, get my good angle. I like to walk around. So, I literally was like, if customer success didn't come around, I'd probably be, wandering around trying to find someone to hire me, because like, pick a path. What are you? Are you an engineering person? You're an ops person? You're a service person? But I think that's like the perfect DNA of a customer success person, which makes it hard to hire people, because you can't find sales and services and engineering and all that good stuff. But I love it. So I've been at Cisco at the beginning of the year, and I think we're doing some pretty interesting things. So I'm going to share some of them, and some of them are literally ideas that we're implementing now. So again, these are not totally baked. I'm challenging you. Sharisha, there was a reference about having a drink. Sharisha and I have a beer, and he came up with a controversial thing, and now I have to deliver on it. But I do think, if you think about, telling you a little bit of my history. So many moons back, I did this in 2006 and dug it up. And it was kind of a unique time. I actually had, at the time, I had pre-sales, professional services, support, maintenance, and QA. So it was like all customer ops minus sales. And so in that job, I had a pretty unique ability in that I was able to design. I owned everything. I owned from sales all the way through implementation and even QA. So what we did is we built this process where you basically, down here, in front of the camera, successfully, sideways, so face back and forth.
That'll work.
So I built this process because I owned everything end to end. Between the very first point in time we talked to a customer and started collecting and understanding, it was literally like business objectives, outcomes, understanding, and then you start to have that dialogue, and then the professional services person comes in, and they have a conversation. They say, great, you're going to try that business outcome. Let me start to translate it into a technical implementation plan, and then we deploy. They pass that on to the support people. So when the support people picked up the phone, they would say, oh, hey, VP, I see you have this environment. You have this many devices. We implemented this. These are some of the issues you had. This is what you're trying to accomplish. And we even took that same stuff and moved those into use cases and moved into QA. So when we released product, we would run those use cases of our big customers. We didn't do it for all customers. So at that time, segmentation, we had a form of segmentation. But we literally had like probably even a more extreme lifecycle management than probably most talk about, going all the way back into product development and leveraging those same use cases outcomes. So ever since then, I've always been really passionate about the post-sales world. So who's been in kind of I don't use post-sales anymore for customer success, by the way. It's I have a side note why I don't call it post-sales, because it should be an integrated motion.
It's all one journey.
It's one journey. Who's been in post-sales for 5 years? 10 years? I'm an old guy. So I'm keeping my arm up. 15 years? 20? Okay, good. We're all in the same boat, right? So if you think of if you think of who's been in software for 15, 20 years? Okay. So who tried to convince a customer to turn on telemetry like 10, 15 years ago? Anybody? I know I did.
I do.
And you beg and plead, and actually it wasn't from this telemetry perspective that we get now. It wasn't to proactively. It really was so we can figure out where our software is broken. But we called it managed services, right? But at the time we didn't have telemetry. We didn't have all these customer success platforms. We didn't have a business model that required businesses to care. It was post-sales. You sold it. The salesperson high fives, they got their commission. The professional service person, they got their sign off, they high five and they're done. Good luck, support, go for it. Right now, in a SaaS subscription model, that relationship has changed and it needs to become much more integrated, which I think most people recognize this. TSA's kind of layer model, land, adopt, expand, renew. So no longer did the customer own that software, that hardware, whatever the widget you sold them. They're just paying for a service. They don't like the service, they go get a new service. And so, here's where we are. That's where we have this meetup. That's where I'll hear. That's where we are focused on this, right? So there's this continuous integrated selling motion. Customer success is absolutely core to that. So if I talk about evolution of post-sales, kind of moving a little bit more forward, we start to get, maybe you convince a couple customers to get some telemetry in place. Maybe we start kind of thinking a little more operational mindset. Salesforce comes around, comes up with this customer success thing, and we start moving, and software companies start getting in and building more technology. We started building lots of cool innovation around our post-sale world. But this is an evolution that's been happening. In some ways, you could say it's the same thing. It's just we're building innovation, we're building technology, we're building an operational mindset around something that was account management before. Someone that walks around, takes you out to dinner, takes you out to lunch, makes sure everything's cool, calls you up every once in a while, deals with escalations. We're leveraging the innovation of technology and operations to bring account management to account management 2.0, customer success. So I would argue, so bring us forward to today. So at Cisco we use the value framework. And it's a great, I think it's a really great framework because what it does is it just bakes down, makes it very easy to explain what we do. And I'm using this chart all the time now as I talk to execs because we're scaling up and everybody wants to know what we're doing with their money. But it basically gets down to, what did I buy? How do I use it? What value do I get? What do I need to learn? What training do I need? What processes are going to change? How do I embed those into my business? How do I make it sticky? How do I make sure that customers get the value from what they purchased? So Cisco, as you know, is making a big transformation from their legacy business, which is hardware, into software subscription and SaaS. You saw they purchased App Dynamics. This is absolutely core to their strategy. The layer model is absolutely core to their strategy. They're driving this, they're making this investment, and customer success is absolutely core. And the good thing is, I think there's some pretty interesting things that are being done. By the way, TSIA people, they won last fall. Cisco won the award for kind of innovation and customer success with this framework. So, anybody ever seen this before? Something like this? The triangle? Yeah. Got high touch, low touch, I got digital, I got consumer products, right? This is so same the evolution of when I did that chart in 2006. This sort of someone probably did you could probably look back and Omid probably did this kind of first segmentation presentation when was it? Where'd he go? He disappeared. I queued up a joke for him and he's gone. Where's he?
Straight back.
Oh, there he is. So anyway, if you look at those points of innovation, this is like 2015 maybe, 2014, 2012. I don't know, somewhere in there. it's a good idea, and we all kind of, similar to what I said, we all kind of did it naturally. Like I did it in 2006. I didn't do it systematically. But someone said, hey, you should do it systematically. You should segment your customers. You should segment them in your system and treat them differently and build process. Hey, that's a good idea. Let's go do that. All these other software vendors, the platform vendors say, hey, let's put this in. Let's do health scores too. Why not? Good idea. But again, I think that's 2015, right? Today's world, we have the innovation continues. You think of consumerization of IT, the innovation is continuing to happen and happen fast. This is old. If you're right, the base is big customers, big margin, big money. I can invest a lot of money. Smaller customers, smaller, I can invest a little less money. Small, I can't really invest at all. I'm just forced. It's economics. It doesn't have anything to do with customer experience. It doesn't have to do anything with teams and talent. It doesn't have anything to do with how you engage with a customer in doing exactly what you need, especially for me, in a hybrid situation where I may have a customer that has multiple different products that they may be consuming, that they have adoption for, that maybe are two different domains. Maybe one's networking, maybe one's security, maybe one's cloud. We already have a hard enough time finding CSMs that have the sales and the ops and the product technology and the services mindset, let alone throw technology domains on top of that, and you want to support 3? That's like the Uber unicorn. Find me that unicorn. So I think it's a great evolution in 2015, but I think there's more ahead. So why change? Maybe we should stay. It just works. Seems like it works. Why don't we just keep with that? Economics, velocity, and there's opportunities to improve the experience. So economics, great, fine. But segmentation is based on economics. But we know that it's going to become more competitive in a lot of different areas, whether it's price or whether it's building space for you to deliver extra services. That's also part of economics, to be able to provide better, more value-added services for the same price. So how do you increase the value? How do you do things faster? So like the automation perspective. What I really like is how do you build a new experience? How do you add on to something in a new and different way? And ultimately, I think that it comes down to, this is one of my core principles of I have like 10 blogs in my head, and none of them have been written, but I've got great titles for all of them. But that's one of them, is that I want every second that you spend with the customer, I want maximum value delivered with that experience with that customer. Right? You're scheduling a meeting that's non-value added to a customer. So how do you shed all of those non-value added and just maximize that opportunity? So then I said, well, what do CSMs do? So there's all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff we do. So again, this is kind of the value framework that we use. So we work with stakeholders, we do QBRs, we send them emails, we check in, we send them reports, we identify barriers. There's a lot of variability in there. There's depending on what kind of product they purchased, the maturity of the customer, and where are they in the phase. And so there's a lot of variability there. But all of these, if you look, all of these are opportunities. Can you make it more efficient? Can you make a better experience for the customer? Can we do it faster? Can we move at a higher velocity? Does anybody have any ideas? Is anybody doing anything along these realms in your job? Nobody? So we'll go back to the same slide. Why change? So here's our first thing, digital everywhere. So I think most people say, oh, digital's down here. We don't look at it that way. We see digital being a play everywhere. And we're doing it now. So first, in terms of experience, we use, I'll get on my Cisco, Cisco WebEx, Spark, a lot of these tools that engage and allow us to engage our customers and collaborate in a new and different and more rich way. We also use a product called OneMob. I think it's in there, OneMob right here. It's a really interesting thing, we do videos, and you can send videos to, it's not a competitive success, is it? So it allows you to send videos in kind of program. Hey, I'm David, I'm your CSM. We're going to do our kickoff, and you build something that gives a much more personal, rich experience that you can email and kind of set them up. Or maybe you give them the agenda for what the QBR is, or maybe, so we're using that to come up with different ways to achieve actually two things. We actually had a much richer attach of someone actually opening it. And then when they actually open it, they have a much better experience than just reading through an agenda, or reading through, it's a different way to engage with your customers. The other thing is I'm introducing here the concept of campaigns. So, and we're driving, so if you think of a digital journey, which tends to be consumer products, or tends to be, products you just can't afford to put humans on, use a digital approach. Why wouldn't you use digital approach here? You still have 50 accounts, maybe 100 accounts in this realm. Why wouldn't you use digital to take away to again, enrich the experience, but also streamline it, so that conversation, even if you have 50 accounts and you're in a low touch or virtual space, you can maximize that, bring the most value to the customer in that phone call, in that meeting, in that QBR. Why are you doing success plans? Why don't you automate them? You have the telemetry. You know what the customer is. You know what industry they're in. Why don't you come up with especially if you have a high ratio of accounts, start automating some of those. I can do white glove treatment. To me, I think that's antiquated. And we have the technology. There's so much innovation. I bet there's probably 100 companies here in this valley that are bringing a ton of innovation that we're not even aware of, and bring a lot of experience to these different segments. So who's on board? Is high touch antiquated? Who disagrees? Who disagrees with me first? Let's challenge me.
So I want to know how you're considering the audience in this. So when you do segmentation, it's there are different kinds of segmentation. So if you're segmenting from the inside out, you're segmenting for what's meaningful to you. And unfortunately, a lot of the segmentation that happens in customer success is actually from the company's perspective, not from the customer's perspective. But if you're segmenting from the customer's perspective, of what value you're adding to them, what industry they're in, what their needs are going to be, I'm curious how you manage to ignore that or put that aside. I don't disagree with digital everywhere, but I think about who is the audience. And as you know, I'm very built into the different generations. And some generations react differently to digital input versus white glove input. And I think you can I think there's a risk of losing track of what your customer wants from their view into you. So that's my concern.
That's not controversial. I agree with you.
Actually,
okay.
Sorry. I want to add a point. Love your feedback and David's feedback as well. So if today you do a survey, you find that almost 90% plus companies have a high-touch segment, right? They follow a segmentation strategy. They will have high-touch segment. And almost all of them would have done that segmentation based on the dollar that they get.
Which is inside out, not outside out.
Absolutely, all of it. They would say, if somebody is giving us more than this much dollar,
then we're going to have high touch.
Then we're going to throw bodies at it, right? But is that the right approach?
I don't think it is.
So then that's the validation I was looking for. I think it's making CSMs lazy in some ways.
Well, and I think you've got to go back to Boaz's maturity model, however you look at it, because he's looking at where you get the most bang for making your customers successful, right? So if those customers might be emerging, they might be those people that you can move from the upper left quadrant to the upper right quadrant where they can become an advocate, then it benefits them to get them better integrated and with whatever your product is, and it also benefits you because you build advocates out of it. And you don't always, they're not always a high-touch customer according to outside-in segmentation. So I think some of this is about whether you're segmenting inside out or outside in.
I think if we're talking high touch, I would guarantee almost 90% of the people have a portion of it inside out.
Of course they do.
Because it's by nature, the economics. But I also think when you look at verticals, that's outside in. I don't think that goes away necessarily. I think there's probably two things. As you get more and more mature, as you learn more about your customers, your segmentation will start to get bifurcated in lots of interesting ways. But I think it's segmentation that's get bifurcated in different ways. It could be horizontal and it could be vertical. And I'll go to my next thing, which actually, then I turn the whole thing upside down.
Well, I was having.
I'd like to echo that with maybe a framework to think about it, right? Segmenting your customers based on how much revenue you get from them today is like saying, I own a car and I drive it in order not to hit people on the road. It's important not to hit people on the road, but that's not the objective.
Right.
Right? SaaS, almost by definition, you buy small and you grow.
Right.
So what I get from customers today is the last thing that I should do or should use in order to dictate how much effort I put into the customer. It's about the potential, not about how much I do. Segmentation of high, medium, low touch is focused on reducing the level of effort I put or optimizing level of effort. It's not focused on how I maximize value to the customer or maximize value from the customer. It's a focus on your resources, it's focused on the bottom line, right? Not on the top line.
Yeah.
Now decided that's what you want to do. In some mature places where your customers pay you what they pay you and you can grow much, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
In some customers where the growth potential is just not there, makes a lot of sense. If you think there's a lot of growth potential that varies among customers, looking at how much they pay you today just makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's a lazy way of doing things.
It is a lazy way.
Smart of doing things.
Well, it's also entrenched in the old business models that are non-subscription.
It also usually pigeonholes customer success in only affecting the bottom line and not having the potential of affecting the top and bottom line as well. And therefore that also goes to, your cost center, not a profit center, which also then devalues when you go to the CFO and asking for expansion for our team, etc.
Phil?
Two questions, Dave. So essentially, I completely agree with the digital everywhere model, but essentially, you may or may not disagree with this, but you're kind of putting a marketing spin on it. Yeah.
I'm taking a marketing concept and applying it to adoption.
Right, because you're still doing campaigns and you're still pushing out webinars and all the digital.
But the campaigns are not necessarily intended to sell more.
Right, that's a
The
different
campaign would be saying, I see, for example, we had a malware flow around. Why are we running a campaign? Look at all of our customers with that security product that aren't using the feature that they would protect them if they had a malware attack.
Yeah.
And I'm going to run a campaign against that. And I have all of the CSMs run that campaign. Here's the play. Here's what you talked about. Measure it. See if we got the right adoption.
Yeah.
The product consumption. I'm not saying, and sometimes we'll maybe do new features and other things, but it's really to try to get them to either new versions, which we think are better.
Yeah. So what I struggled with is the frequency, right? You have 3 different segments. How often do you touch each segment? That's the first question.
Sure.
And number 2, because it is digital, if they're having a bad day and they're getting a bunch of email and they click on the unsubscribe, you've lost that digital customer essentially.
Yep.
How do you recover that?
Sure. Yeah. So you have to. I think, to your point, which I didn't get to, is you have to be real cautious because you don't want to do that here. Right, so as you start to integrate this in, you have to be real cautious on how to do it. I can't say we figured it out, but we're figuring it out. So we're starting at this tier, and we're going to eventually move up. We're already doing some stuff here. Can't tell you, it's top secret. But we are doing some stuff at all tiers now. But I totally agree, with if you're talking to Ford, and they expect they've gotten white glove treatment from every company that they've ever dealt with for the last 50 years. Right? That's not going to change, right? And so you have to, what I would then say, you would have to treat that customer appropriate to their segment, to their vertical, all of those things, and that's where the human piece comes in. And so one of our challenges is figure out that right balance of how much interaction do you have and control workflow as part of that digital experience versus just like letting it run automatically in a
And are you also going to push the human touch down into the lower tiers?
Absolutely.
Next slide.
So this is, I call it my trickle. I'm really bad at analogies, by the way. I'm really bad at slides. I didn't do any of these slides. But I call that my trickle down, trickle up. So I'm pushing up digital from the bottom up, and I'm using that. So again, the other thing I didn't touch on, these are, which I'll get to. These are field people, close to customers, big customers. $300,000 on a single product and up. And we deal with, you name some of the largest companies in the world. So we have global enterprise companies that we deal with, and I saw a matrix, which will get to my next point. But yes, I have senior people here and in the field, and our intention is that we use that learning and push that down, and use that insight to drive the digital journey. So trickle down, trickle up. It's a terrible analogy, but I don't have a better one yet. If someone has one, I would love to hear it.
Sanjeev, do you have a question?
Yeah, have you considered or are you thinking about flipping this and allowing the customer to choose?
No, but it's a great idea.
Opt-in versus-
We want them to opt in, yeah. But I mean, that's a good thing. Actually, the one thing we can do with the human touch, you can actually make that call.
Right.
Because they didn't unsubscribe from their phone call, you can still call them on the phone. We're going to still call you and knocking on the door next if you don't answer your phone.
So how do you manage the whole digital experience, like marketing and product? Everybody wants to like email and reach out and in-app and touch your customers. Can you just give us some insight?
Well, he has it right up there. Best practice journey mapping.
Well, I think you're actually talking about, there's like to Phil's point, there's a marketing campaign that's sending them a bunch of other stuff, right?
I just, with
Right.
the little I do, I struggle with that, so I'd love some insight.
Yeah. I don't know how to figure it out yet. I didn't say I had it all figured out. But we're trying it. But what I would say is it is something that we have to be cautious of. The digital team is plugged in with, so they actually do the sales digital journey as well as the adoption journey. So the good thing is there's likeness there, protecting their customers from all of those people. And now we're bringing digital in. So it's in a certain way we're just bringing yet another new player in to go poach the customer. But it is something that something we're always have to watch out for. And it was the same issue was there 10 years ago, just with people.
Now, do you have a question?
To your point, Cisco is a big company. I mean, given the perspective that's, I think, pretty unique Cisco has in the industries that it plays in, it's almost number one in every single category that it actually works in. Do you think that you would take the same approach for all other types of companies that are looking for customer success? How would you alter this to working out of a company that's not number one in the space, recognized?
Yeah.
Very, very loyal, diehard following of customers.
Yeah, I think this probably isn't going to be an A/B round startup because some of these tools are not cheap, and they're not necessarily there's definitely investment that's needed to make this digital journey work. On the millions of dollars for us, but I certainly think there are, on the flip side. If I go back and talk about the evolution of customer success from our post-sales world into customer success, there's been a ton of innovation that's happening now that I think will just make a lot of these things easier, less expensive, more available to all companies. But you definitely need like a digital team and people with that focus that can actually execute that. And again, it's kind of these emerging things. I think of like a role of success product manager, right? I think there would eventually be like campaign adoption people that would run campaigns. Is anybody doing any concept like that? I'd love to. Anybody running campaigns in their customer success?
So yeah, I've done it twice. So when you're asking a question about doing it in a smaller company, so I was at a startup like 600 people, and we had the campaigns was a big idea that we're going for, right? So super high touch, and we had like this kind of what we called SaaS, was just kind of our self-serve business. and then everyone else was basically got to keep everybody, right? But what we wanted to be able to do was drive, and it was a ad tech company, so the business model was you get a percentage on top. So we wanted more adoption, get more money. But the idea was that we identify our segments of customers within whatever we needed to do. They have this particular product, and this is a campaign, this is a feature that we have, right? So we're going to identify, like a marketing campaign, basically, but it was enabled by our CS team. So we had a bunch of content, we had like the webinars coming in, we had who clicked in, who's hot for it, who needs it, and then we had different kind of segments of, kind of like marketing nurture campaigns. Okay, let's get these guys out, right? And then in these campaigns, we were able to measure the success of getting them on, and then actually measuring the success of getting on that feature, and then producing the result. So it's not impossible to do, right? It's doable within a small company. You just need you need specialization to make it happen, and you need kind of top down, someone that has to say, you have to work with Daniel or whatever in marketing. You have to work with this, and you have to build a lot of those relationships. But totally doable. It's just I wouldn't pick if you're starting out, I want to do 5 programs like this quarter, right? Like you kind of have to work it out. But yeah, totally.
Yeah. We have to figure out, we're starting small, just running one, because there's a life cycle to a campaign, right?
Yeah.
You have to design it. What do you expect to get? So it's very much like a marketing campaign, but it's driven specifically, the context is important for adoption. Again,
how do you specialize those campaigns?
Funny thing is, before you even ask, I'd probably say, I don't know the answer to what you're going to ask.
Yeah.
But I'll probably figure it out and ask me in a year, I'll figure it out. Go ahead.
BS is good here, Joe.
Make it up.
How do you specialize these campaigns to the users, not to just an individual account? Like, you know what this account wants to achieve, but I want to know what Joe, the everyday user, is looking for within this account. How do I specialize in a digital touch to him?
I don't know.
Well, if you have roles
Well,
set up.
but I would say our intention. So we're kind of starting this journey. It's a great question. The way that I would ask it, if someone asked me on the team, then I would say, then don't run it, or take the play and tweak it. All right. So it's not like you're a robot. There'll be potentially how we design the play, whether it's an email goes out or maybe you call, depending on how. Then tweak it, right? Because there's still people here. Now, not here, right? Whatever it is, you get whatever here. Here, the benefit of bringing that kind of hybrid interaction, you can tweak it. You have the ability to tweak it and make it appropriate to them.
I was just going to say,
there's my whip it out. That's what I'd ask if someone said it.
I was going to see if you segment based on user roles within an account.
Sure, we do that.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I think ultimately over time, I think if you kind of start to segment, you'll probably build verticals. You'll build all kinds of different things. It's certainly at Cisco they segment on. I think one of the things on again also inside out, but account opportunity. The sales team they kind of look at the opportunity for those accounts. That's in sales, no, not for us.
So, Dave, if you don't mind, just playing devil's advocate here.
Please, I love devil's advocate. Red team, blue team.
How do you explain the risk of potentially alienating your high-touch customer or your chief promoter by over-communicating with them or getting them to opt out basically of all communication?
We test. We do it very carefully, especially at the top end. Right. So here, we have to look at that because we have to. But then again, I would also use the human aspect of it, right? So in the high touch, at least for us right now, it's 15-1. So those success managers can actually take those and adjust it and say, hey, don't even opt them out. I'll opt them out for you. So I think that our approach would be to leverage that human interaction. I don't think we'd ever just let these things run like you would here. So again, I'm not saying I'd run digital the same at these here, or if I do segments on verticals, it wouldn't necessarily run in the same way.
So you're banking on a high level of human intelligence around.
Where do you have a human intelligence now? I'm just looking to optimize it.
Yeah, so you're essentially redefining what high touch is, right?
At this slide, yes, but my next one is when I flip it around.
Let's keep going because we got about 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Yeah. Well, I was one on for like 40. All right, my next one.
You've been on
Okay.
for 30.
No, he
So I didn't know why. There's a few slides I just put in here because I like Bruce Lee. So. So, is there any, who's ever heard of Jeet Kune Do? Anybody? Okay. The concept was Bruce Lee kind of took what's best from wrestling, best from karate, best from judo, and kind of mashed it all together.
Don't forget fencing.
Fencing. I didn't know fencing, boxing too. Fellow Bruce Lee fan. Okay. And I love this quote. Not that it's totally relevant, but I just like the quote, so I figured I threw it up there. But I think the concept is flowing like water. So when I kind of look at that segmentation and flipping it around, I see it's very rigid. Somebody did some analysis and said you're high, medium, small. Well, I'll tell you, I've got big companies that I work with, and there's a matrix I saw. I saw a customer that had big customers like Toyota, for example. Multiple sites all over the world. They have multiple products. I looked at Matrix. I think they had 5 offers that we're doing adoption for. Now, your problem. Now I got 5 people calling customers. Most of the time they're different people within the organization, but totally unorchestrated. And also, do I want a bunch of senior people all going after the right account? So I'm picking out my Jeet Kune Do of customer success. Phil Nannis, I give him all my fake blogs. This is I sent him, you know who Phil Nannis is on TSI? Yeah. He's the customer success. I sent him an email, I said, here's my new one, Jeet Kune Do of customer success. But this is where you say, I flip it all around. And I don't have a graph for this because I can't figure out how to visually depict this. But it's basically the concept of hybrid offers, where I build teams of success. So maybe this wouldn't necessarily be, if you only have one product, maybe this doesn't fit for your business. But I definitely have a lot of products. I know Cisco's pretty big, and they also have a lot of products. So, and we also have a lot of big customers. So our ability to work with them with different domains, multiple products, how do you do that? Not have the issue. So the concept I'm looking at is mashing the teams together. So what we have here, in the other slide showed, high touch, these are people in the field, these are people in a core site, I call them core sites. So we have one in Raleigh, RTP, Raleigh Durham, and I'm building one in Salt Lake City. So East Coast, West Coast. So these are earlier in career people, millennials, but I think they actually come with a very, if you think of digital first, pretty digitally knowledgeable group of people. So it does some pretty interesting things. It allows for a rich career development. The problem with field people, customer success, they don't share it. They don't have best practice. It's kind of part, you're out in the field. So starting to build kind of core centers of excellence early in career. We've got field people that are senior out in the field working with customers. Mash them all together, turn the whole thing upside down. I don't even know what low touch is anymore. But I do know I've got a field customer success person that's senior. And I know I've got a bunch of other people that have domain experts that are doing success locally, that are building best practice in the core sites. So I don't even know, I don't articulate tiers anymore because I confuse people. But I'm calling them like hybrid teams, and we're doing it both for high touch, so virtual is that core platform of success. We have field people, which are partner success managers and also customer success managers. And I don't like, there's the concept of high touch, low touch is going to be totally, I'll use it just because people understand it, but as operationally, it's going to be somewhat meaningless. And I want to take the kind of the concept of agile. And you take agile development, you do form teams around specific things. It's your pods, right?
I was just thinking pods, exactly.
So you can see right here that Jeet Kune Do of customer success was invented right here. But that's the concept, right? Again, these are things that haven't even been fully worked out, but I think there's merit to it. I think it addresses the economics, it addresses talent development, best practice sharing, the concept of kind of flow like water, do what's needed for the customer, and assemble around that concept of teams or hubs or pods, whatever you want to call them. Jeet Kune Do teams. So this That has nothing to do with the thing, but I just found the image and I thought it was cool. So, a question for you guys, what are you doing? What are you doing that's innovating? What are you doing that's doing something different?